Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Monday Huddle. I'm Bruce Hooley there with the handsome founder of PressProsMagazine.com, Mr. Sonny Folks. How are you, Mr. Sonny Folks?
Doing well on a Monday evening.
Yes.
Cold again.
Cold
But
again.
it is January.
January 30th.
On the eve of February 1st. Start of the college baseball season is now 19 days away.
Well, it's not the eve of February 1st because tomorrow actually is an important day because it was the day that my second daughter was born. So we cannot skip past January 31st. She will be 17 tomorrow. So
a lot of us will, but congratulations to her.
Congratulations, yes. And congratulations to the Troy Christian Eagles. Wow, they have the win of the recent memory, at least. I don't know if it's the win of the year, but knocking off then number one ranked Miami East up a division. East was number one in Division 3, Troy Christian in Division 4. They are now tied for first place in the TRC. We're going to talk about all the leagues that we cover here at PressProsMagazine.com, where all our content is free always. We got 3 teams in the OCC ranked in the top 10 in the state in Division 1, and we have a lot of Division 4 teams populating the rankings as well. But for now, let's give the props to Ray Zawadski and the Troy Christian Eagles for going into Casstown and knocking off Miami East on Friday night. You were there. Tell us about it.
Well, what I can tell you is they had an excellent week last week, not just Friday night, because on Tuesday night last week, I think it was Tuesday night, they knocked off Tri Village, which is the reigning runner-up in Division 4 in the state of Ohio last year. So they go to Tri Village, they pull off that win there, then they come back on Friday night, go into hostile environment at Miami East, and what a great atmosphere that was. 2 really good school districts for the fact of the way they're managed and run, their coaches there, their administration, teachers, and the kids. First of all, they just plain flat out behave, and you really appreciate that when you go in. But it was a 52 or 53 to 48 win by Troy Christian in a game where they led by as many as 15 points. The last 2 minutes they put some JVs in, and East hit some shots down the stretch in the last 2 minutes to pull the deficit down to 5 points. But honestly, it really was, I think, the best I have seen Troy Christian play probably since their state semifinal team a decade ago when Grant Zawadski was playing for them. 2 really, really nice guards there, particularly with Parker Penrod. We've talked about him. Mm-hmm. And then the other night, Parker Penrod only scored 6 points, but the other night had a youngster junior named Alex Free, who had 15 points. And another one named Frank Rupnick, who got him off to a very good start in the first quarter. I think he had 8 points in the first half. Got him out to the lead, and they're a great front-running team because of how well they manage the basketball. I think they're averaging less than 10 turnovers a game, and you can win some games. Yes, when you can control the pace of the game, when you can not turn it over, and you make free throws. And they made free throws down the stretch. I think they hit 13 of 16 or something like that down the stretch of that game, and so that's how they won it. And that's everybody over here is talking about the presumptive favorites in Division 4 out of the Shelby County League being Russia and Jackson Center, but they really made a strong case for themselves. It did Troy Christian the other night when they said, "Look at us too. We just beat the number 1 team last week in the Division 3 poll in the state of Ohio."
Well, on the night that I saw them, which was 1 week before they knocked off Miami East, they had their way with Milton Union, but the young man who hit the 8 threes at Tri Village did not play that night.
Kyle Score.
Yeah, tell me about him.
Well, I don't know a lot about him, except that Ray Zawadski after the game said there's not a guy or person at Troy Christian right now who would bet against him hitting a 3-point shot in a game. He had set a record the previous Tuesday, a week ago, tomorrow night, against Tri Village. I think he hit 8 of 12, something like that from 3-point range. And that carried over. He only shot, I think, 2 in the game. And they were critical 3-pointers late in the game at the end of the third and the beginning of the fourth quarter. Knocked those 2 shots down after Miami East had made a run to cut the deficit down to single digits. he hits those 2 shots, puts it back in double digits, and that proves to be a dagger because
Yeah.
Miami East had gotten in some foul trouble. They got in a double bonus. They were sending the Eagles to the line. They were hitting all their free throws, and then Kyle Secor makes those 2 3-pointers, and you get the when that happens to you, you pretty much get the feeling this isn't your night.
Yep, that's right. Well, I know Ray Zwatsky was not really looking forward to going to Tri Village. He was saying how he was 1-9 all time against Josh Sagaster in Tri Village, and he was talking, in the respectful tones that you would expect of going into Miami East and taking on the state's #1 team and the challenge that would be. And wow, Troy Christian, a team. I don't know if they're all juniors, but a lot of them are juniors, and they are really playing. And that was a good game for us to be at, and a great game for you to write. And we're interested to see what happens down the road here as we are coming up on tournament drawings this coming weekend for the boys' high school teams.
Well, you make a very good point about them having a lot of underclassmen because Parker Penron, who I think is the best guard that I have seen play, and he's been playing with a little bit of a bruised up ankle. He's a junior. Alex Free, who's about 6'2", 6'3", and he's a scorer. He every time he goes out, he learns something more about how to get to the rim and get the ball in the hole and get points on the board. He's improving rapidly. Rupnick is a 6'6" kid who is a football player and a soccer player, the place kicker on the football team. So he's got multiple skills, and he's just coming into his own. He's the biggest kid on the court and was the biggest kid on the court for them the other night at Miami East. And, he's a player you don't think about as a scorer. They didn't particularly guard him in the first half, and before you know it, he's got 8 quick uncontested points and got them up ahead. And, of course, like Frank said after the game, or not Frank, but Ray Zawatsky said after the game, yeah, we are good front runners because we take care of the basketball and we don't turn it over.
All right. Well, you have bowed to the will of the people. A couple weeks ago, you wrote about the top boys teams in the area, and people were like, "Hey, we're the top girls teams."
Yeah.
So you have written about the top girls teams in the area. Take us through that one.
Well, I think the that's up on tonight's feature page, at least until about 11 or 12 o'clock tonight when we change it. But if you want to read about it, it's the #1 team that we've personally seen.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw Tri Village play Sydney earlier in the year. They beat them 5 or 6 points. And Sydney's got more athletes. I just think they have more athleticism. But Tri Village has played together. They're very well coached by Brad Gray, a Division IV regional team last year before being knocked off by Cincinnati Christian. And they have that one shooter, and you have seen Riley Sagaster play. Daughter of the head coach of the boys team there, Josh Sagaster. She's got range. She has shot it for years, and she can change other teams' thinking about how they play defense and how they manage the game. And I just they're 19-0. They're unbeaten. They have athleticism enough to pressure teams, get turnovers and easy baskets in transition. They're remind you at their best of the way Fort Laramie has played for years. But they're going to play defense. They're going to get the ball in Sagaster's hands, and she's got range enough to step out at 22, 25 feet and let it fly and hit it. Now, you've seen her play. I've seen her play. She hits those shots. And, I think they are owing the designation until somebody can beat them and prove me wrong that they're the best girls team that I have personally seen. Now, #2 is Fort Laramie. And Fort Laramie is Fort Laramie because they're going to play pressure and they're going to get turnovers and they're going to get the easy buckets in transition and run to the other end of the court and score. But the thing that I think sets these two teams apart is Riley Sagaster. Fort Laramie does not have that shooting threat from the perimeter like they've had in recent years. Let's call it this way: a dependable threat. On a given night, they may have somebody go out and hit 2 or 3 or 3 or 4 3-point shots, but Sagaster's going to do it and has proven that she's going to do it every night. So those are my 1 and 2 teams. Sydney's right there in the top 3 or 4 because of the fact that the athleticism. I think the thing that makes you wonder about Sydney is they play in a weak league in the NBL, the Miami Valley League, where there's not a lot of competition at Troy and at Piqua or Greenville. I think Tip is probably their biggest threat. Butler's a nice team, and I have them in our top 6. But Sydney has beaten Butler twice this year.
Mm-hmm.
So Sydney is there. Tip City's there, just outside the top 6. Butler's there. All those teams we write about tonight on the. You probably got it there in front of you. I'm forgetting somebody, but Russia
High School. You have Marion Local
and Marion Local.
Parkway.
Saw Marion Local the other night at Parkway, and that's a good team. Parkway was 16-1. Marion Local went in, played very good physical defense with them, got points inside from Lindsay Koenig and Ava Unrest, and saw a girl the other night that I'd heard about, had not seen, Gabrielle Stober, who shoots the 3 for Parkway. Very confident shooter, shot 26, scored 26 the other night, just didn't get a lot of help. And they lost by 5 points to Marion. Russia is a team that reminds you a little bit of Fort Laramie because they can play defense, and not only can they play defense, they can go out and make other teams do things that they can control pace of the game. They've got scores, rebound well. They've got some size. Paul Bremerton does a great job of coaching them. So they're in that league as well as Parkway, and we wrote about them a little bit in Gabrielle Stober.
Well, I know last year I watched Russia play in the district tournament. I believe they were on the same dance card as Fort Laramie and Tri-Village at Troy High School, and Russia had the team from Cincinnati. Should have had them beat. Was it Cincinnati Hill? It wasn't Cincinnati Hills Christian Academy. It's the one that eventually knocked out Tri-Village.
I think that was Cincinnati Christian.
Cincinnati, Christian, and Russia should have won that game. So I know they had a couple seniors that they lost, but I'm not surprised to see that they're back this year. And I'm looking at the tournament draw for what could be a Press Pros heavy Division 4 regional.
I'm sure it will be.
We have Fort Laramie is the top seed, and Russia is the second seed in one of the Southwest districts.
Right.
We have Marion Local is the top seed. St. Henry is 3, and New Bremen is 4 in the Northwest 6 district. And in the Southwest 2, we have Tri-Village as the top seed. And so I'm looking at the other one, the other district that feeds into that one. It's a Southwestern district. That one's the one that has Russia in it as the 2. So there you go. So I fully expect to see a lot of those, if not all of those teams, vying for a berth in the state tournament at UD Arena. Last of a 3-year deal at UD Arena. I don't know. Have they extended that? If not, I hope they do, because I think it's a great venue for
it. I see that staying there for a while, frankly, because it is never. I don't think I just don't get the feeling that Ohio State wants it on campus there anymore. I know people in around the state want it centrally located because it makes it easier for everybody to get there. But hey, look, if Ohio State doesn't want you there and they don't want the expense to having to staff the place, that being the OHSAA, because they've got to rent that facility, I think they have a better deal at Dayton. Doug Ute has said Dayton is a basketball community. That appreciates that event probably more than what the city of Columbus does. And so I think there's a very good likelihood that it stays in Dayton for some time.
I would agree with that. Okay, let's switch gears a bit. What else would you like to talk about? Let's go through the high school boys polls.
Yep.
The newest poll is out. As I said, we have 3 teams from the OCC ranked in the top 10. Olentangy Orange is number 4. Olentangy Liberty is number 5. And your defending state champion, Devon Royal, and Pick Central is number 10. On top of the rankings, Lakewood St. Ed, your state football champion. But looming at number 2 is the Centerville Elks. And I would have to say that the Elks would be my pick over St. Ed's if the state championship game came down to those 2.
Yeah, they're not just looming, Bruce. They're there. I mean, they are in position to play, knock off anybody on a given night.
They have retooled 2 years ago, I don't know the young man's name, but he was a really sweet freshman for Chaminade Julienne. He happened to live in Centerville, and he's now playing for Brooke Cups, playing with Gabe Cups. And CJ has replaced him with George Washington III, the cup of coffee Ohio State commit, who is now a Michigan commit. CJ is ranked number 2 in Division II, but on top of that is Columbus Bishop Hartley, a team that our Steve Blackledge covered a few weeks ago. Hartley has good size. They got a really good coach, and they are, or excuse me, Reedy. Reedy is on top. Reedy is on top. My bad there. And Reedy is 17-0. Taft is number 3 in Division II. He dropped down to Division III, and there is the ever-present Lutheran East squad at number 1. Hide the women and children, because that will be a physical affair if Lutheran East shows up to play you. Toledo Emmanuel Christian is number 2. Miami East has dropped down to 4. Afrocentric with Dalen Swain, who's headed to Xavier, is number 7. And Worthington Christian under first-year coach James Story is number 8. You drop to Division 4, and there's Richmond Heights, your defending state champion. Jackson Center and Scott Elkert, they come in at number 2. Leesburg Fairfield is number 3. Convoy Crestview number 4. Russia 16-2 under Spencer Cadonier is number 5. Marion Local, who we had Kurt Gettemiller on last week. Marion Local is tied for 7th and debuting in the top 10. Ray Zawadski and the Troy Christian Eagles at number 9.
Yeah. There's a lot of those teams that are undersized, especially in this particular area. And Ray and I talk about that from time to time. And that doesn't bother. It doesn't bother Spencer Cadonier. It doesn't bother Scott Elkert up at Jackson Center or Ray Zawatsky at Troy Christian, because those guys have their kids really well coordinated with they do everything right. I was watching the other night about just the passing accuracy. People don't really pay a lot of attention. And when you're running your offense, how important it is to make good passes. Hit somebody in the chest with it. Don't hit them in the feet with it. Accurate, good, dependable passes. Boxing out, defensive rotations, help side defense, all those little things that help you win games. They are so well schooled in that to where we've seen Botkins a few years ago frustrate Richmond Heights and simply beat them in the semifinals because they were so well schooled in those fundamentals. So I don't think size bothers some of the coaches around here in the area that don't have it. If you're 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", and you got a couple kids on the bench that you can play to where you can afford some foul trouble and still have a credible player that you can bring in and fill in, they're not too concerned about it. If you do those things right, if you hit free throws, if you're solid on the court, they'll take their chances against a bigger team like they're obviously going to see probably in the district when you start going south of I-70 and see some teams down that way, and certainly in the regional. And without question, if you get to the state finals in Dayton, they're going to see teams with 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", just like you mentioned.
Yeah, no doubt about it. What do you have in your crosshairs for this coming weekend or for this week in terms of boys games or girls games that you are looking forward to covering and or seeing the result from?
Well, I think one of the teams that I'm going to see this weekend is probably Coldwater for a second time. Coldwater got off to a not such a luminous start at the beginning of the year. One, because they got a late start because of football. Two, Marcel Blassingame, who played football and was coming off the broken leg that he finished the year with in football. When he got out of that, is just coming into his own now. They won 5 of their last 7 games when I saw them play the other night against St. Mary's, and that wasn't a very good match for them. Austin Parks at 6'11", set a school record for all-time career scoring record for St. Mary's that night, had 24 points. And Coldwater didn't play very well defensively, and I know Nick Fisher was upset with them. But I do want to see them a second time because they're athletic. They do a lot of things well. They have played very well in the second half of the season. So I think that's a game this weekend where we want to get a second look at the Coldwater Cavaliers. Certainly, the Shelby County League teams have some good matchups yet to come. Jackson Center, for one, plays LCC. And that's going to be a game that I think I don't think that's Friday night, but I think that's a game here in the next a few days when they play Frank Hill's team up there, and they're not the record they've had in recent years. I think they're a little bit better than 500, but again, they always have athletes there, and they'll test a little bit a team like Jackson Center because their ability to get out and run and create opportunities for them that you don't typically see from Houston and Fairlawn and Anna and some teams like that, at least this year. So those are some matchups over the next week or so that we want to look at. And then, of course, in the Miami Valley League, I'm still. I wrote about them last week. I'm still a little bit in love with Tip City and the way that Stanley Klein makes them a threat against a given team on a given night. 6'2", 6'3" senior there that's very quick, can get to the rim, can score, can shoot the perimeter shot. They're a very nice team with Liam Peronsky at the point and Stanley Klein being able to play 4 of the 5 positions. They're well coached again by Brock Moon, his first-year coach who took over for Adam Toohey. So I think they're a team that we want to see certainly over the next week or so and see how they finish up because, they're going to be a high seed in Division II in this area.
Yeah, we've got some really good games coming up this weekend in Central Ohio in the OCC. I mentioned Olentangy Orange and Olentangy Liberty ranked 4 and 5 in the state. Liberty's got a really tough one on Friday night. They got to go to Hilliard Bradley and take on Bradley, which is 13 and 4. Liberty is 15 and 2, and then Richie Beard and Jerome from Dublin Jerome, they head to Olentangy Berlin on Friday night. That's a matchup of 14 and 4 against 12 and 4. And then on Saturday night, we've got a major headline girls game with Olentangy Liberty, which is ranked number 9 in the state, 16 and 2. They destroyed Dublin Kaufman's 70-plus game winning streak a few weeks back. We had that one for you on Press Pros. They are on the road on Saturday night at number 4 Marysville. Marysville is 18 and 1. So I would imagine Marysville's gym will be packed out on Saturday night for a battle of number 4 and number 9 in Division I in the state of Ohio. And it is our intention to cover all 3 of those games. And we will have a very busy weekend because Friday night, we have quite possibly the most dominant college team of any sport over the past decade, bringing its number 1 ranking into the Covelli Center at Ohio State. I'm talking about the Penn State Nittany Lions wrestling team.
You would not have guessed it was wrestling, I know.
Which has won the last, was it like 3 of the last 4, I think?
NCAA titles.
NCAA titles, and then Ohio State. I think Penn State has won every title but one since 2015 when Ohio State won it, and they won the 3 prior to that. And Ohio State has finished runner-up to them 3 times since winning it in 2015 themselves. Tom Ryan has a team that's ranked number 5 in the country. That means they're ranked 3rd in the Big Ten because Iowa was ranked number 2. Iowa went into Penn State on Friday night, and Penn State pulled that one out. And Friday night, we're going to have a couple phenomenal matchups at the Covelli Center. The event is already sold out.
Yep.
We'll have about 5,000 people in there. And Press Pros will be there as we have added Ohio State wrestling to our offerings that we cover. And we have gotten great response to that.
Take a moment and describe. I know there's a lot of wrestling people out there, and I have not seen them in Big Ten competition. I went with you one night earlier in the year to watch them in an exhibition, but just describe to people what the atmosphere is like for an event like Penn State against Ohio State in wrestling, because I was talking about the atmosphere at Miami East the other night and how electric that was and how enjoyable it is to see people that committed and that dedicated and that loyal, that loyalty to the kids in the communities going out and performing like that. It's nuts at the event you're talking about on Friday night.
Yeah, well, they wanted to get Value City Arena for that match because they were pretty confident they could fill it with 18,000 people.
Yeah, I am too.
Unfortunately, they could not get it because the Ohio State hockey team is home that night, and there's no place else for the hockey team to play. So they'll be in the Covelli, and that's a beautiful building. It is really, there's nothing I've seen this year that I can compare it to, because they have competed against Michigan State and Rutgers and covered a
Virginia Tech. Virginia
Virginia Tech. Yeah, it's just,
Tech.
the difference, I would say, between a non-league Ohio State football game against a MAC school and an Ohio State football game against Michigan, when both teams are ranked in the top 5 in their national championship hopes, hinge on it. Penn State has 2 guys who are not only defending NCAA champions, they're 2-time defending NCAA champions. And unfortunately for us, at Press Pros, one of them wrestles Mechanicsburg's Caleb Romero at 185. Caleb is going to have his hands full with Aaron Brooks. Talked to Caleb about it yesterday. We'll be writing a story about that particular matchup a little later on in the week. And then Ohio State's number 1 recruit over the past year, Jesse Mendez, not afraid of anything. And he's got Roman Bravo Young, who is quite possibly, pound for pound, the best wrestler in the country. He has not lost since the Big Ten championships 3 years ago. He's won the last 2 NCAA titles. So Roman Bravo Young, pretty impressive. But Jesse Mendez told me last night, I want to be the best. I want to win a world championship. I want to win an Olympic gold medal. And wrestling guys like this is part of it. So it's going to be a great.
And you got to beat the best to be the best.
Yeah.
We talk about that all the time, and it's kind of cliche because you always wonder about who the best really is. Here's an example on Friday night when there's no question when you look out there that here is the best, because they've proven they're the best. And it's one of those, I don't want to say once in a lifetime, because that's hokey to say stuff like that. But this is once in a great long while when you get to see a matchup of 2 teams with that much on the line individually and collectively as you're going to see on Friday night.
Well, I just tell people Big Ten wrestling is like SEC West football. It is the best that there is. You got Penn State 1, Iowa 2, Ohio State 5, Michigan 7. There's, Northwestern is in the top 25. I think Rutgers is in the top 25. Nebraska is in the top 25. So Big Ten wrestling, there's been 1 non-Big Ten team win a national championship in about the last 15 years. So it's the cream of the crop. And Cale Sanderson, who was an Olympic gold medalist, is the head coach at Penn State. Tom Ryan, head coach at Ohio State. Tom is very confident in the future of Ohio State wrestling. Why wouldn't he be? He's got a Taj Mahal to wrestle in, a lot of corporate support, a lot of NIL support. He's getting unbelievable recruiting classes stacked on top of unbelievable recruiting classes. And I think that Ohio State likes where they are. I think they feel like maybe this is not the year they can quite get Penn State yet, but I don't think they're shirking from the challenge in the next few years. We'll see where it goes, but we will definitely be there Friday night.
Well, I'm glad it's something that we're doing, because we've had people reach out to us for several years now wanting to know if we can ever crack into the wrestling community, and you have made that commitment over there to go do it and see it and engage with those people and get the relationships going. And so it is something that takes a little bit of time to get up to speed with. But, again, you mentioned a moment ago, there is the response to us publishing the stories and the coverage of Ohio State wrestling on Press Pros. And like bowling did when we started that 4 years ago, it is incrementally growing week by week. And it's fascinating to see where this can go, where it can take you, and where those people are, because they're not just at Graham and they're not just at Versailles and people here in the area that have historically supported wrestling. There's wrestling interest all over the Midwest and particularly in the state of Ohio.
We neglected to thank your friends at Skynet Internet Services for making tonight's show possible, because without them, we might get the intermittent spinning hourglass on your internet.
Well, we'd be getting it if we were in my house, and because of that, we are here in the opulent quarters of Skynet in downtown Piqua. Skynet rural Wi-Fi service to Miami, Shelby, Dark, Preble, Logan, Clark. In fact, just about any place around here within 100 miles. Seems like they get to Champaign, Auglaize, Mercer. That's not 100 miles, but West Central Ohio and those counties. If you've got sketchy internet, give them a call at 773-0098 and talk to Craig Grissom and they will take care of whatever deficiency you have. Nice thing about their service, and they do hook me up at home with that, and they've done a great job. When you call, they're going to answer. You don't get an answering machine. They will answer, and they will help you face to face, eye to eye. And I think they've just about solved every problem with rural Wi-Fi. Much better, I will tell you, than what I had with satellite Wi-Fi previously. So give them a call at Skynet Rural in downtown Pickwitz, right here on Main and Ash Street. And again, 773-0098. It's the 937 area code. Dr. Craig Grissom. Tell him you appreciate the Monday Night Huddle show on Press Pros Magazine.
And Thursday night, you and I will be together in Columbus for the basketball Buckeyes. Yes, they're still playing against Wisconsin.
Right.
And Chris Holtman is hearing some wolves at the door.
Discontent.
Because his team has lost, losing track, 7 of 8. 7 of 8. They are 1 game over 500. They are 4 games under 500 in the Big Ten. They still have a fair amount of basketball left, but it is very difficult to look at that schedule they have coming up, including Thursday's game against Wisconsin or Sunday's at Michigan, and find a win, let alone more than a win, because they have not been very good lately.
It's very hard to picture them in the Big Ten tournament.
Well, they'll get in it because everybody gets in it. They don't make you win your way in it, but I don't know.
No, but I mean, it's very hard to picture them in the Big Ten tournament without being one and done, because they just there isn't anything right now that you can point to and say that they're doing well. And I think that's the irony of that is that at the beginning of the season, when you and I had this conversation here about Bryce Sensabaugh, about the freshman class that came in, of which he's a member, about getting Justin Suing back, about everything that the what ifs. If this team, everything goes well for this team, what if they're healthy? And what if these freshmen really come out likely? And these people that have come in out of the transfer portal and make a difference. What could this team, how could they compete in the Big Ten? That is as far away now as East is from West. Mm-hmm. And that boat has sailed.
Yeah, they got to win games. They got to just put 1 or 2 wins together. And I don't know if they have internal issues. They look to me like a team that resents Bryce Sensabaugh doing all the scoring. Well, then step up and score. Justice Suing, Zed Key have been mammoth disappointments. Very inconsistent, not showing any leadership. I'm a big believer that a great leader has to do it on the court, to lead by example. You can also lead with words, but your words have more weight if you also lead by example. And they're getting nothing out of the transfer portal. And that's just not a recipe for success these days. You have to get something out of the transfer portal. Tanner Holden has been a disappointment other than a last-second shot against Rutgers, which shouldn't have counted. Isaac Likely, I have no clue why they took Isaac Likely from Oklahoma State. They did not need another wing. They needed a backup point guard. Okay, go find a backup point guard. You can't have a backup point guard who can't shoot. And Isaac Likely can't shoot except for against Iowa, and everybody shoots well against Iowa.
And it's ironic to me why in some of these, when you get down to the end of some of these games that they've lost in the last 30 seconds or so, why Bruce Thornton is sitting on the bench. Obviously, he's a very skilled player, very sought-after recruit. And yet there's something there that we're not being told or we don't know about, or anybody else for that matter, because – you know, when it becomes crunch time at the end of the games, you asked me said to me the other night, I don't understand was it Iowa or whatever game they lost, and he's sitting on the bench instead of being handling the ball and trying to facilitate the offense in the waning seconds of the game.
Yeah, there's a lot strategically I don't understand. I talked at length about the end of the North Carolina game, but against Rutgers, they needed to foul, and so you pick the worst free throw shooter. Okay, fine. The problem is they came out of a timeout and they had Bryce Sensabaugh with 4 fouls guarding that kid.
Yeah.
So your best player who can hit a game-tying three fouls out on that play. At Illinois the other night, they've got a few seconds left in the first half. They're inbounding 94 feet away. They're coming out of a timeout, so they've had a chance to plan their strategy. Bryce Sensabaugh inbounds the ball to Ike Likely, who dribbles at the length of the court and shoots a runner in the lane. Now, Ike Likely was 1 for 6 at the time. He missed it, of course, and he finished 1 for 7. If somebody's going to take it the distance and shoot it, I would rather have it in the hands of a guy who could make a jumper from 30 feet instead of in the hands of a guy who can't make one from 3 feet. So there are some things strategically that I shake my head at. If you're losing because the other team's better, or you're losing because, you did something, you didn't try to do it, but it happened, you missed a shot, you turned it over, you bounced it off her foot, whatever. But the job of a coach is to put his team in the best position to win. And I feel like in those instances, they have not done that. They lost all 3 games. They didn't lose the Illinois game because of that decision, but I could argue they lost the North Carolina and Rutgers games because of those decisions. I really like Chris Holtmann personally. I'm just baffled by where this program is headed, and I don't like criticizing him, but I also have built a career on not being a shill and a homer for the home team and not telling people what their lying eyes tell them. And this is a team that has, for all intents and purposes, quit. And when that happens, you've got to wonder, why is it happening? I think that you can look at this year by itself and say, okay, it's year 6 and they've had 5 pretty good years and they've had 1 bad, what appears to be a trending toward a bad year. But in 6 years, they have not been to the Sweet 16 and they have not won a Big Ten title. And when I hear people excuse the current struggles because, Thad Matta didn't go to the NCAA tournament his last 2 years. Yeah, but over a 6-year period, Thad won you a Big Ten title or 2 or 3 and got you to a Final Four.
Well, and Bruce, the last time you and I were together, working one of those games a couple of weeks ago, we were sitting there talking about if it was 6 years between football trips to the Big Ten championship game, we would not be having this discussion.
No, we would not.
And again, I hate to bang on the fact of priorities, but you do question it. It's like when I cover baseball, I've said for years that obviously baseball is not a priority with the Big Ten schools like it is with the SEC or the Pac-12 or the Sun Belt. It's obvious. The budget's different. The marketing of it is different. Everything is different. And when you give a coach, Greg Beals was there 12 years, and I thought he did a great job. I thought he was a great coach. But it didn't, I think he never won a Big Ten outright title in 12 years. Now, if that were football, there'd be heads would roll. Bye-bye. And it took them 12 years to make a coaching change in baseball. And whereas I saw him go, the new regime that has come in with a totally different mindset. And of course, we're going to get to see that start in about 18 days. So I'm very anxious to see what the Mosiello era looks like in baseball there. But again, going back to basketball, you just wonder, this was a freshman class that they talked about being in the top 5 of the country when it came in last year. Now they say they got another one coming in next year that's equally as anticipatory. So,
you know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of a sign in a bar. Free beer tomorrow.
Yeah, free beer tomorrow. And you're right. I hate to criticize Chris Holtmann. I'm not. You're the one that has the responsibility with writing them. Good guy. And a guy that you really wish good things for and you want him to see well. But right now I don't see well things down the road for him.
No, and I wonder what's Gene Smith thinking, presuming he is thinking, because men's basketball is a revenue sport. You can put up with a Greg Beals who doesn't produce a Big Ten title for a decade because baseball is going to
draw 1,000. Yeah.
As you're going to lose money probably even unless Bill Mosiello gets it going to a previously unforeseen success level nationally, baseball is going to lose money. Every other sport's going to lose money except football and men's basketball. They need men's basketball to make some money. And I'm not sure what the buzz will be next year other than what do you sell. Bryce Sensabaugh is not sticking around. I think they could get eviscerated in the transfer portal. I don't know anything about any individual players, but when you have a year like this, guys typically look to leave a sinking ship. And I don't know if I would say their ship is sinking, but it's hit an iceberg 7 of the last 8 trips. And so they need to figure this out. Now, can they figure it out? Sure. They've lost a lot of close games. I'm waiting for them to win one where the referees don't miss an obvious violation of a kid coming out of bounds and being the first touch of the ball.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, I wish good things for him. Anybody who's followed me over the years knows I'm in the bag for Ohio State basketball. I love them, but I got to put the brakes on my fandom sometimes and just tell you that what I see is not good, and what I see right now is not good.
Yeah. Hey, let's move on for a minute. I'm going to borrow a little bit from your former employer at ESPN and Tony Kornheiser when I say this. We both watched sports all weekend on TV on the national level, on the national basis. I want you to finish this sentence for me, regardless of what you saw and what you want to talk about over the weekend. And I think I know where this is going when I ask you this. Finish the sentence for me. What you saw over the weekend left you blank. What?
Left me wondering if you're right when you tell me that gamblers have a lot of input into the outcome of professional sporting events.
Well, I would say it left me, from what I saw yesterday, it left me confused. It left me confused. And you can go a number of ways with that because I look, I want to talk about what we were talking about earlier today when the topic of officiating.
Yes.
I saw some things that happened this weekend that simply make you wonder. And I'll start back with, was that Saturday night or Friday night when LeBron that foul on LeBron James against Boston was so egregious.
I think it was Friday night.
And it was so obvious. And there's two officials sitting there looking at it at 90-degree angles. You have to see that. And no call was made against LeBron James, of all people, who
I know.
That's gets away with a lot. I mean, he gets a lot of calls. Now he says he doesn't, but we've all heard, and I officiated for years, and that argument about when it's crunch time at the end of the game, you don't want to be the game to be in the hand of the officials. You want the outcome to be determined on the game. And yet, when you don't call that foul, and when you don't call the blocking in the back on the last kickoff yesterday in the Bengals game, when they run the ball all the way out to the 45-yard line, there were 2 or 3 obvious calls in that game that weren't made on that one play by itself. It does make you want, when you don't make the call, you do have the game in your hands. You are penalizing the players and the outcome of the game when you don't make that particular call. You don't want it to come down to a call, but when you don't make the call, it does come down to a call. That's confusing. And I've said this for years, we're asking officials to evaluate too much anymore instead of just see it, blow the whistle, stop things, and judge things the way everybody sees them and wonders, why isn't he shooting and why isn't he getting 15 yards?
Well, the worst thing I saw all weekend on TV was Fox Sports miking an official for the Ohio State-Indiana game, because that turns officials into actors and TV stars. And the minute they put that mic on DJ Karsten, I'm like, well, DJ is going to be acting tonight because this is Ted Valentine's dream, is to have a camera on him and to have a microphone. And look, I know football is a very fast game and it's a very hard game to call. But when a lot of the calls that were very consequential in the late stages of the Chiefs and Bengals game are all going the Chiefs' way, and you can look on the kickoff return and see a block in the back, and you can look on Patrick Mahomes' scramble and see Trey Hendrickson getting held. And you can't tell me that 95 times out of 100, that Joe Burrow grounding penalty is not completely ignored in an NFL regular season game.
You're right.
Quarterbacks do that all the time. It sure felt like the NFL was wishing hard for the Kansas City Chiefs to be in the Super Bowl because, all right, we did the Bengals rags to riches thing last year. We really don't need to do that again. Let's have Andy Reid coaching against his former team in the Super Bowl, and let's get Patrick Mahomes to the Super Bowl so we can show a few more State Farm commercials. That's what it felt like. And I'm not a guy who grew up a Bengals fan, but I can see when a team's getting screwed. And a do-over on a third down play, a do-over because the home crowd was so loud that the home team gets a do-over. And then I called it before the play even started. I said, you watch. It's going to be defensive holding on the Bengals. I knew it would be. I knew they were going to give them the first down, and they did.
Well, the NFL will tell you the last thing they want is their integrity questioned. I mean, they fine players, they fine coaches for saying things in public, and I mean, they fine them a lot.
Did you see what was trending on Twitter today?
Yes.
Hashtag NFL fixed.
NFL fixed.
And now, they brought that on themselves going back a week before. What is the overturn of Jamar Chase's touchdown?
But 75% of the country is tonight sitting here having this conversation like we are, questioning the integrity of the NFL and the fact that tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars are bet on the outcome of those games every week. How can you not question the integrity of the National Football League?
And so a player now can dig at a ball when a receiver catches it and is out of bounds. A guy can still like rake at the ball and knock it loose until the guy gets up, and that affects whether or not it's a touchdown, even though he got not 2 feet in bounds, 3 feet in bounds against the Bills.
Well, my favorite argument about in high school, and I think the high school guys do for the most part, there's no question about it. There's no gambling, there's no issues like that with high school basketball. But I say this: the game is getting quicker and more physical all the time, and the officials are now being asked not to call contact, but qualify contact or evaluate contact, and saying who's got the advantage versus a disadvantage, and how does this really affect the outcome of the play? And that's a lot to evaluate in a split second.
I don't want officials evaluating advantage.
No.
Call what you see.
Call what you see, because that's what the people in the stands see.
That's right.
When the people don't understand it, and the kids don't understand it, coaches don't understand it.
Here's the worst.
We don't understand it, or we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Here's the worst thing you'll ever see an official do in basketball, and you see it all the time. You ready?
Yeah. Play on.
Get up. Well, somebody got knocked over, and there's a reason why somebody got knocked over. Call it.
Well, the second worst thing I've seen was last week, or maybe it was in the last 10 days. I heard an official tell a coach, I know there was a foul. I saw it. But he's down there on the baseline. That's his call. I don't want to take that call away from him. I saw it. The guy got hooked, but I didn't make the call. You're right. He admitted to the coach, you're right. But we don't want to make that call. And nobody understands that. That doesn't make the game better. It doesn't help the coaches, doesn't help the kids, and it certainly doesn't help people in the stands. But again, we're asking so much of officials anymore to evaluate contact rather than just call what you see.
Let's go back to the college football playoff semifinal. That Michigan kid catches a pass on the goal line. It's a touchdown. Oh, we got to go review it because we review every touchdown play. I mean, come on.
Let's go back to the play with Marvin Harrison where the guy is questioned for targeting. Obviously, he targeted Marvin Harrison, targeted him in the back of the end zone. You look at that play, the ball's already through his hands and out when the contact is made. And people don't understand that. It makes you question. It just makes you question the integrity of what you're watching. And that's a shame.
I
hate that it comes to this. I said to you, the one word that how do you finish this sentence? It's just frustrating and it's confusing because you want to believe better than what you're led to. When you come away from that, you say, I'm not sure that was right. And there shouldn't be any question about that. Do you agree with that?
I agree. And I think they could help themselves so much in basketball and football by not restricting their replay official to involvement only when he's asked to look at a replay. I would empower the official. I would have an official watching the game on television, because when you're on the field, it's moving so fast for you. You're not going to necessarily see Trey Hendrickson get held. Or you're not going to have the perspective to be above the play and see that block in the back on the kickoff return. But you're watching it on TV, like what? 50 million Americans are watching it on TV. And we're like, well, that dude's getting held. And the guys on the field don't call it. And then we wonder, well, why didn't he call it? I mean, you can see plain as day
Yeah,
he's getting held.
yeah.
So if you've got a different perspective on it, and an official would on television, why not empower him to make a call? They got walkie-talkies and stuff. He could buzz it down. He could throw the flag. He could call it from the booth.
And you know, Bruce, assumably, or they want you to believe that the guys working that level of games are better than the guys that are working the high school games here. And I'm not sure anymore, but what the guys working high school here, football and basketball, aren't more dedicated to getting it right and worried about those kind of calls and the integrity of what they're doing out there than the guys who are in college and certainly in the National Football League.
Well, you would know because you were in on the inner sanctum of umpiring at the AAA level. And my belief is that guys like DJ Karsten and guys in the NFL, Gene Steratore and others who make it to the highest levels have a high level of acumen when it comes to officiating, but they're even better at making friends with the right people.
Relationships help.
Yes.
Relationships help. And there's no question about it. When I asked when I left AAA baseball, I know it was a mark against me that I was 5'11", 175 pounds. I look around and they're taking guys to the big leagues that are 6'4", 250 pounds. I worked for years with Tim McClellan, who was an excellent major league umpire for 30 years. Tim McClellan was 6'7", weighed 260 pounds. He was a very commanding figure on the field. And there's no question that the guys that went out ahead of me were bigger, and they made no points about it. Hey, we're looking for a particular look on the field. We want big, commanding presence on the field. And I wasn't big and commanding at 5'11", 175 pounds, but that's a different. But look, there's guys out there now who are 5'11", 6 feet, not making calls or making calls or some leaving people like us to watch the game and saying, how can you not see LeBron James lose, get hit in the elbow to where you think he could lose a hand and that not be a foul called? And then the NBA comes out and says, well, our bad, we missed the call. We feel terrible about it. So
Congratulations.
Bottom line, you don't know what you're watching. It's very confusing.
It is. Well, let's knock off a couple Reader Speaks comments, and then we'll let people have the rest of their Monday night to themselves.
Well, the most prevalent Reader Speaks comments that came in over as a result of the boys, who are the top boys teams that we saw last week, and I think we answered some of those earlier tonight in the show, and certainly on the homepage feature that's up right now about who are the top 6 girls teams that we've personally seen. And again, I'm always impressed by the number of people who enjoy women's basketball. It is a game that is rapidly improving. You know that because you had a daughter that's playing. And, those girls now, their skill level incrementally. They're not as big, not as fast, not as physical, but their skill level is just improving on a yearly basis. And when you go, if you really want to see where women's basketball is going and can go and will go even farther, go see a Division I college game and see the skills and the speed and the shooting accuracy and just how fundamentally sound those girls, how quick they are, how strong they are, how fast they are. And you're seeing tomorrow's stars today in some of these girls like Riley Sagister. We just mentioned her. I think she's going to Marshall next year, Division I team in the Sun Belt to play down in Huntington. And because she can shoot the basketball with such great acumen and accuracy. So, that's I enjoy the people who write to us and say, hey, what about the girls? Don't leave the girls out. No, we didn't. And we're impressed by when you see that kind of play and women like Carla Siegel and men like Paul Bremagen and Brad Gray that dedicate the time and the work they have to women's basketball. That's a good thing. It's a good thing for kids. It's a good thing for sport.
And while it has been a tough week for the Ohio State women's basketball team, who had gotten all the way to number 2 in the country, your number 1 ranked Division II team is right here in the state of Ohio. That would be your Ashland College Eagles. And one of their main players is Macy Spielman. And Macy and the Ashland team will be playing at Ohio Dominican on Saturday, February 11th. That's a 1:00 tip. So I'm looking forward to taking that one in and seeing Macy Spielman, who was the all-time leading scorer at Upper Arlington High School. Chris Spielman's not youngest daughter, but second youngest daughter. So good basketball in the state of Ohio, and we look forward to covering the girls' tournaments as we do every year.
Got a nice letter today from Bruce in Central Ohio wanting to know about Ohio State baseball coverage. Bruce coming up in 19, not this Bruce, but a different Bruce coming up in 19 days. Opening weekend is February 17th, 18, 19, and 20th in Port Charlotte, Florida against the Yukon Huskies. And if you say Yukon baseball, 50-16 last year and got beat by Stanford in the Super Regional. Beat Stanford in the first game of the 3-game series, lost the next two on the West Coast, and 50-16 last year. And that's going to be a big bite to chew for the Buckeyes starting out in Port Charlotte. But we'll be there and cover those games February 17th through the 20th.
Very good. Well, it's been a fun show tonight. We've got a lot coming up this week. As I say, we have Ohio State basketball on Thursday night at home and a must-win against Wisconsin. Ohio State wrestling against Penn State. That'll be a blackout on Friday night, number 1 against number 2. A lot of great high school basketball out there. And before we get out, we want to congratulate St. Mary's Austin Parks. Thanks to our viewer, Rob, who said, best thing I saw this weekend, Austin Parks drops 45 Saturday night and breaks the single game scoring record. Thank you for letting us know that, Rob.
Well, Rob, that's somebody that couldn't defend the drop step to the baseline because he needed 10 points in the fourth quarter last Tuesday night to break the all-time scoring record. And he just went to work down low. They got him the ball in lower. And when he gets the ball 6 feet from the basket, you're not going to stop him from scoring. He's not only tall at 6'11", but he's about 240, 45 pounds. Very well put together, very athletic, and by the way, a very fine young man. Great to meet him and talk with him and have the opportunity to cover and write about him.
Well, I hope he is ready to contribute immediately next year at Ohio State.
Yeah, I am too.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for watching. We appreciate it very much. Share this with your friends. Follow us on Instagram at Press Pros Magazine, on Twitter at Press Pros Mag. You can follow us on Facebook. We thank our sponsors for sponsoring our content, which is all free at PressProsMagazine.com, which is increasingly rare in this era of limiting your content to 3 or 4 stories a month or to making you pay for it. We do not do either, and we could not do that without the support of our great sponsors, many of whom you've seen on the crawl at the bottom of the show tonight. Register to win the $50 Layman's gift card that we'll give away in January at PressProsContest@gmail.com, PressProsContest@gmail.com. And with that, we will see you out and about at the games that you are attending this weekend.
And see you next Monday. It goes quick from Monday to Monday.
Yes, it does. Everybody have a great night.
Good night.